Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Derek Elliott from Dirk.com, and many moons ago I created these box animations. They were a really cool way to integrate my packaging design love with some graphic design and of course some 3D animation. A lot of people were asking me how I made them, but unfortunately it is a secret. We are not going to be covering that today. I'm just kidding. We're going to walk through the exact process I used to create these animations by creating this one, a slight variant, which honestly turned out pretty freaking cool if you ask me. It's going to be a little bit of modeling, a little bit of lighting, a little bit of materials, obviously. That's definitely the coolest part, and some animation to top it all off. If you want to check out the animations I did in a little more detail, then my Behance page is probably the place to go. And if you want to play with the exact file I create today, it is going to be available on my Patreon page. And that Patreon page is really just a way for you to show your support for my tutorials. Maybe you learned something, or I've helped you out in the comments or on Instagram. Feel free to give me your money. That's what it is. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. There is a reward for all tiers, which is access to the tutorial files, but the main reason is just to give you an option to show your support. If there's any other ways you'd like to support me, then maybe what you could do is leave a like on this video, share it with your friends, or maybe leaving me a comment telling me to stop talking and start the tutorial. Alrighty, so let's go ahead and jump into making that animation. So what I'm going to do is just use my default cube here, and then in edit mode, I'm just going to make an edge loop cut there with Control R to kind of create what will eventually be the top and the bottom. And I'm going to try to speak my hotkeys, of course, like I normally do, but I did now turn on screencast keys. A couple people were asking for that, so check down here in the bottom right if you miss anything in particular. Going to be lots of middle mouse clicks, as you can see. Anyways, we've got a cut there, so now what I want to do is just separate those pieces. So I'm going to go into my face select mode and then select all these top faces, press P and separate them by selection. So now what I have is a top and a bottom for my box, and yeah, it's pretty basic. So we obviously would want to add some thickness to this. We could do that with the solidify modifier, but I'm going to have a couple other kind of features and details here that I think will be easier to just model instead of using the modifiers there. You know, it's just a box, pretty simple object. So what I'm going to do first is press E to extrude that, scale it in, and then in my front view wireframe, I'm going to just kind of take a look at this, bring it down to a nice thickness, and then we'll obviously want to press F to make that a face. And yeah, now I have pretty much the bottom of my box. Let's go ahead and make the top of the box. Going to follow a very similar process here. Select those vertices, E to extrude them in, S to scale it inwards to match up kind of with this thickness, and then press E and Z, and I'm just making a little bit of a lip here just to give this thing a little bit more interest. I'll scale that in and then go up. And maybe we leave the top thick. You're not even really going to see that, but little detail. So now I'm going to press F to fill that face in. And yeah, I've pretty much got my box modeled there. But as we were just kind of eyeballing things, we're going to notice that it doesn't quite line up exactly. So like this is kind of overlapping. You probably wouldn't see that detail, but just for the sake of accuracy and kind of making things a little more nice and even, I'm going to... I've kind of aligned things to the grid pretty good here, but it's not exact. But one way I can make it exact is by selecting both these objects, tab into edit mode, which is something new in 2.8, by the way, is going into edit mode on multiple objects. Press A to select everything, and then Shift S, selection to grid, and it will snap all those vertices to the nearest grid points. And since they were pretty close, it did just what I wanted. Now this does depend on how far zoomed in you are, like it's going to snap to whatever level of grid it can see. So that's looking pretty good. Now I think the next thing I want to do is just take a look at this object here. These edges are super sharp. That's something you don't really want. So I will go ahead and add, I think, a bevel modifier just to round those out a little bit. And you can kind of adjust this as you please. I want this to be a pretty sharp cut still. Something like that I think is going to look pretty good, and then maybe give it a couple more segments just so it's nice and rounded out, and we'll shade that smooth. That's looking pretty good. Let's do the same thing on the bottom. We could do, just type in these variables again, but a faster way would be to select that bottom object, shift select the top one, and then press Control L, and that will allow you to link the modifiers. So now this bottom one and top have the exact same modifiers. Handy little trick, can save you some time. So with that shaded smooth, we've got our box looking pretty good. I'm just going to go ahead and move this down. And now what I'm going to do is set up a little bit of lighting. And now would also be a good time to save your file if you haven't done that. So Control S to do that. Now what I'm going to do, like I said, I'm going to move my camera into just kind of an interesting position. Well, not too interesting. I just want it to be nice and lined up. You can kind of get creative with it, and I encourage you to do so, but I'm just going to kind of go into my fly mode here, and that's Shift tilde if you missed it. And just get this placed kind of nicely, and then just even it out. Since I am a perfectionist, I'm holding Control and just adjusting these values here. And that's going to just snap everything to nice numbers. There are a couple other ways to do that, but that's what I think works pretty well. So let's go ahead and save this file again. And now what I want to do is I think set up just a little bit of lighting. But before I do that, I want to set up my viewport so it's working a little more for me. So I'm going to bring this down here. We'll end up using this top tab here to work on some materials in a minute. The fun part, I'm telling you. And then down here, I want to leave this as a 3D view, but I'm going to have this be kind of what my camera sees. So we can move that into rendered view. Clicking this little button here will engage the rendered. I'm going to actually do this in EEVEE though. It'd be pretty much the same process in cycles, but people are always super hyped about EEVEE these days, so we're going to do EEVEE. Just going to pop over here into the scene tab and switch it to EEVEE. You can see it looks pretty much identical. Yeah, so we're going to just do it in EEVEE because it's fast and it's fun and it's new and people like it. So I want to give this a little bit of a backdrop so it's not just looking into nothingness, and the way I'm going to do that is by just adding a plane, scaling it up, rotating it on the x-axis by about 90 degrees, though you wouldn't really be able to tell if it wasn't exact. And then I'm just going to move that back a little bit so that it's kind of framing our frame there. So now you don't really have to do this, but for some reason I always just like to kind of have it match the aspect ratio a little more. Something like that looks good. Okay, so now to get a little bit more of an exciting look, we're going to want to kind of rotate this, and that'll be just, we'll animate it a little bit, but this is just going to be while we're setting up the lighting. So you want to rotate it maybe something like this, again style wise, but it's not really a good idea to rotate these actual objects. So what I'm going to do is parent them to an empty and then just rotate the empty object. So let's add a cube empty, and because we were working with our default cube, this empty ends up coming in pretty much exactly the same size. So I'm just going to move that size out a little bit so that it's a little easier to grab. So let's select both these objects and then select the empty last, and then Control P to set the parent to that object. Now when we rotate this, these will keep their orientations nice and even at zeros and one scale and stuff, but we can just rotate this object, and that's going to be handy when we're doing some animation in just a minute. So for this camera view over here, I don't need to see all these overlays, so I'm just going to hit this button, then I'll turn them all off. And yeah, so now we just have a kind of clear, unobstructed view of what our render is going to end up looking like pretty much. So now to set up a little bit of lighting, I'm going to leave this point lamp. I think I like that pretty much where it is. Maybe I like to turn on this transform here. So maybe we just kind of move this down. This will be kind of a nice rim light, and it's also giving some interest to the background there. We've kind of got like a cool gradient going on. Maybe we can make this radius a little bigger so it's got a more kind of a soft light. Yeah, that's looking good. Maybe bring the power down a little bit. Something like that should be fine. And then I just want to add 2 more lights to the scene, and these will help light the front of the object, but they'll also be really critical when we're setting up our material to kind of help show off some of those glossy effects that we're going to create. So I'm going to add an area lamp, and then let's just move this over here. And we will probably have to move these again later, but I'm just getting them in there now so that I can start to have a little bit better scene to play with. So let's bring the size of this up a little bit, and then the power will need to come up. So you can see we're starting to get a little bit of light there. And maybe kind of bring that over something like that. And it's really hard to tell until we have the material set up, but I think something like that looks pretty good. Let's duplicate it, and then this light maybe will just kind of sit somewhere down here. Sort of going for a 3-point lighting setup, but this will be, again, a really big part of this is just to be able to reflect the glossy effects we're going to create. So maybe bring that power up just a little bit. And you can just kind of move your cube around here and see what it's looking like. But for what we're doing now, I think that that's going to be just fine. So let's move into setting up that material a little bit. Don't forget to save. Now, to set up this material, I think what I'll do, we'll just leave our setup how it is. I tend to like this. For some reason, anytime I get rid of my main viewport over here, I always feel like I end up needing to click on something and then I have to screw around with the windows again. So I can see what I'm doing pretty well down here. If it gets crazy, maybe I'll switch it over. Actually, you know what? Let's just do that. So I'm going to make my 3D viewport super big over here. And then I'm going to change this to a shader editor because I think this node is going to be a little on the larger side by the time we finish. So with that, see, look, there I go again. Maybe what we do is turn on the overlays for a second. So I wanted to select the cube and I accidentally selected the lamp. And I could tell because I was looking over here in this feature tree, which is another way to select objects. But yeah, let's just select it like that. Okay, so we've got our material set up there. It's very plain, you know, we can change the color and stuff of it if we want to. But yeah, I want to probably first go ahead and just apply the texture. So the way I'm going to do that is by selecting this principled shader and pressing Control T. Oh God. Okay, so I had multiple things selected there. I just want to select the shader, Control T, and then it'll set these nodes up for us. And if you weren't able to press Control T, it's probably because you need to go into your preferences and turn on the Node Wrangler add-on. It's quite convenient. You should definitely use it. So with that there, it's not actually, it doesn't have any texture going into it. So, you know, if you tried to render this, it would probably be pink. But what we can do is load in our sticker sheet. So what that is, I might have mentioned it earlier, it's not the right way to do UV texturing, is basically the gist of it. The number of downvotes on this video will probably correspond almost exactly to how many people are really good at UVs and are gonna die when they see how I do this. But I basically just created this, what I'm calling a sticker sheet, and I'm just gonna place my UV islands around on this and try to get kind of an interesting look going on. So I've just got a few different elements here, and we're going to kind of apply those to the objects. So with these objects both selected, I can go into edit mode, press tab, and then I'm going to press A to make sure everything is selected, and I'm going to press U, and I'm going to smart UV project, and that will unwrap both these objects. And now the first thing I like to do is just scale everything down really small and put it in a nice white area where nothing's happening. And now I can go back into my camera view and maybe start to set up this material a little bit. So this is feeding into the color, and we're in rendered view over here, so we should be able to see what's happening. So what I'm going to do first is just, I think what I want to do, this is where it gets really confusing. I think I want to have the Dirk logo just kind of right on the front here, but maybe, well, let's actually place I think I'm just going to put a big 22 over here on this side. And again, this is a part that can take some time, just depending on the look you're going for. But I'm just selecting a face in the object mode in my viewport over there, and then just bringing it over to where I want on this sticker sheet here. And I'm just going for kind of an abstracted look. Maybe we make that kind of big there. We could just kind of fill that side. Again, this is just kind of a stylized look. Do whatever you want. So I got the 22 there. Now for I think right here I want this logo to wrap around. So back in edit mode, let's select those faces and then move them. Okay, so we have an issue here where these did not unwrap the way we kind of expected them to. So I'm just going to re-unwrap those. So with these faces both selected, I can press U, and then instead of Smart UV Project, I'll just do Unwrap. And since this is just an edge, like it knows how to unwrap it without having any seams or anything. So now those should be together, and you can see it's working. But what I'll do now is just kind of scale this up and just kind of move it over. And now we have a nice effect kind of wrapping that edge. Something like that I think looks kind of cool. Maybe we make it a little bit bigger. Once you scale it too far, it'll start to come in on the other side. Something like that I think looks pretty good. So cool, we've got the 22, we've got the Dirk. Now let's just add maybe a couple more details. Let's take this top here and maybe make the open here text. It's upside down, which I don't want, but it's kind of cool actually. Let's still turn it right side up. Maybe this goes like over here or something. Nah, let's just center it. That looks better. Cool, maybe we could put one on the other side just in case we end up seeing the other side when we're doing our animation. Move that there. Maybe we leave that one upside down, just kind of for some cool effect. Got the 22, got the Dirk. Definitely need to get the website on there. Let's put that on the top. By the way, depending on when you're watching this tutorial, there's really no reason to go to dirk.com ever. For as many times as I say it, it's like there's not really much on there. One day there will be, but today is not that day. All right, so we've got our super artistic box, and then I had one more detail I didn't use. Let's put that little let's put that thing on the bottom. This little piece of text here. And by the way, this texture, if I didn't mention it, is a 4K texture. It's just a JPEG I made. It doesn't need to be like huge for this effect to look decent, but just kind of, get something good. So here's one more tip I'll actually use. So let's say I want this just to be in that corner, but it's coming into the other part of I don't want the 22 there. What I could do is, again, this is kind of bad practice because we're adding geometry here, but I could add an edge loop there, and then now I have a separate, it shouldn't mess up any of my other UVs, but now I have a separate face here, and I can just scale that down and move it off. So we were able to kind of have some control. And sometimes that can happen where things kind of intersect. And again, this is all about not being perfect, but just having a quick fix for something. Now, I do think this probably added some extra geometry because of the bevel. Yeah, it did. So I don't want that there. I am trying to keep it a little clean here, kids. So let's get rid of, okay, so we just need to give the bevel a limit method. Let's change it to angle. And that means only angles above this number will get the bevel. So this is basically an angle of 0, so shouldn't be getting it. Let's go back to our rendered view there. Looking pretty sweet. So now we get into the part that's a little more confusing. I'm going to get rid of this window. We are going to set up some actual materials. So far we're just playing with this color input, and that's cool and all. That's some kind of more basic texturing, and that may be all you really need to do. But I'm going to take it another step further. Let's get into let's get rid of our overlays there. Save again, and then oops. Okay, got it selected. So the first thing I think that I'll do is add a little bit of a bump to the text, and the way I'm going to do that is by adding a vector bump. About what it sounds like. We'll plug that into the normal. And then let's move this stuff over here a little bit, just pressing G to grab that. And then let's unplug this from the color. And then so that we're not looking at this weird green color, let's make this kind of like just a medium gray. And we don't need to be looking at our camera view here necessarily. And I think this jagged edge has something to do with some EEVEE settings. I'm not an EEVEE pro yet, guys, so give me a break. I think we probably want to turn on ambient occlusion. I don't know, for the heck of it, sure. Turn on screen space reflections. Okay, that did something. I'm liking that. Indirect lighting. We're not going to mess with that, I don't think. High bit depth and soft shadows. Yes, it was the soft shadows thing. So don't worry too much about what that looks like. When you actually render it in EEVEE, it does a pretty good job depending on how many samples you have. But that's going to be good for me. So while I'm setting this up, I'm going to drag this color into the height factor here, and that will give us our bump effect. So that is like super quick, super easy. And let's grab our empty here and just rotate around and kind of see the light effect that's having. And you could use an HDRI, by the way, to help see these effects a little bit better. But I just have my scene lights. And you know what? Let's actually go into the look dev mode here. And that's going to automatically use like a built-in HDRI. That's going to be a little easier. So let's actually just stay in that look dev mode. There's also like a tab up here for, let's see, I think texturing or shading, where it'll like automatically set your viewport up in kind of an ideal way, which I never use those, but it's looking pretty darn convenient right here. Let's actually use it. All right, Blender 2.8. I'll drink the Kool-Aid. I'll use the layouts. So the strength is super intense. It wouldn't necessarily be as bad if this wasn't just like a JPEG, but for what I'm doing, it's gonna look fine, promise. So let's just bump the strength down, and it looks like those effects are going in. I kind of want them to bump out, so I'm just gonna hit that invert button, and yeah, that's looking pretty good to me. This should just be a subtle effect, so not too much in the way of strength. And yeah, that's cool. So the bump is working. You know, if you were going to use color, you could plug that in too. But for while we're setting up these effects, I just want this to be all one solid color, so that we can really see those, you know, that gloss and the bump effect. So about that gloss, let's do that next. So what I'll do is unplug this so that I can focus on this gloss specifically and plug that into the roughness. And now we can see what's going on here. That is pretty darn cool. We've got kind of a spot gloss effect going on. And the reason that's happening is because in our texture, if we take a look at it here, we can see there are black areas and there are white areas. And so the white areas correspond to a value of 1 and the black areas to a value of 0. So what we can do then is assume that if we link that back up, I'm using a couple Node Wrangler hotkeys, by the way, right there. That's what all the cool kids are doing. So I've got 0 roughness in the black areas, 1 roughness in the white areas, and that makes perfect sense. So 0 roughness is shiny and looks pretty shiny to me. That's what those. That's what this is for. This look dev mode. It's very handy. I should use it more. It's actually quite impressive. And the white areas are 1, so they're not rough. So let's combine these. Now we should have bumpy, shiny areas. That is the money right there. That is pretty cool. You know, you can turn this bump strength down a little more, make it even more subtle of an effect. But that's looking pretty darn cool to me. I mean, yeah. So the last thing I want to do is show you just a quick way to add a kind of a cardboardy looking texture to the whole box. Again, just to give it one more little bit of detail. We're going to do that also with a bump map. So let's unplug these two things, and we're going to run ourselves into a problem after this, but I'll show you how to fix it. I'm going to add let's just duplicate this and then plug this into the normal. I'm going to do this with a magic texture. So I'm going to press Control T just like I did earlier. And then, oops, I pressed some button there. And then I want to change this, instead of an image texture, I'm going to press Shift S and change it to a magic texture. And then this should be plugged into the height. And it's working, but just to make sure things aren't stretched weird because of the UVs I have on this object, let's change this to the object input. And yes, now we have a very cheap cardboard effect. I don't know why, like when I was first doing this project, I just randomly like tried the magic texture and I was like, oh my God, it's freaking perfect. And I didn't do anything else with it. So yeah, no big secrets there. You could obviously make your own texture or play with these settings some more, you know, like adjusting the distortion will kind of give you some sort of cool effects, but comes out of the box looking pretty good to me. So we'll leave it at that. I'm going to bring this strength way down. I want this to be pretty subtle, you know, so that we can really see our effects. And then, so now we need to figure out how to bring back in the rest of this. So what I can do, I think now, is just plug this into here and they should combine. Okay, so yeah, so we've got our bump working again, and we also have the magic working. Let's see, is this affecting these individually? Because I think there's a couple different ways you could do this. Like I think maybe if we plugged this one into this one into here. I'm trying to see if the order is important, and don't mind my experimentation here. So I think the order may be important, but we're not here to be scientists today. It's working. Let's stop messing with it. Okay, so now there is one thing, and maybe this is where the order matters. So, okay, we're not done with it yet. I don't want the cardboard texture on the bumped up text part. So again, let's use that theory, or it's not theory, like let's use the fact that these areas were black, these areas are white. One thing we can do to affect where bump appears, and I'm like holding my, you can't see me, but I'm holding my finger in the air, like making a point. So if we turn this distance down to 0, the effect should be lost. Okay, so it's still getting normal info from that. Okay, so let's change that back up to 1. So if we change this one down, okay, it gets rid of, and maybe that's where the order matters anyways. If this distance is 0, it's off. If it's 1, it's on. So we can just actually like plug into this right here and affect that. So now where it was black, the distance is 0, where it was white, it's 1. So it's getting the full effect, and this is able to be controlled kind of independently now. That is pretty cool. Let's now add back in our roughness input. So now it's shiny, and then the other part's not shiny. And then let's also, we could now add in our color if we wanted to. Again, you don't see the effect as cool, but if you wanted to, and obviously if you don't want the color to be black and white, you can add a color ramp and then just adjust the black and the white. So maybe I want it to be, you know, white. Maybe I want it to be like a deep gray or something. And then maybe this I want it to be like similar, but just a little bit darker or a little bit brighter. I think just a little darker looks kind of cool. Let's go in our camera view here. Oh, and then let's actually switch back into our rendered view. Nice, nice. Got that studio lighting going again, looking pretty sweet. Let's just press R twice and kind of look at this. Oh yeah, it's looking pretty sweet. But now when we do come back into this environment, we're seeing that our reflections, we're seeing those planes very sharply. And depending on the look you're going for, you might want that, you might not. I don't. So I'm going to affect this roughness value a little bit. I don't want it to just be straight up, you know, black and white, 0 and 1. I like the 1 value for the cardboard, and maybe actually I don't want it completely white. But anyways, the way I can adjust this is again with a color ramp. So this is going from black to white now, but if we just take this white value and then move it down a little bit, that will start to become a little shiny. And now we can really see that cardboard texture a little better. Don't want it quite that shiny, so let's maybe bring that back up to something like that. Just a little effect there. And then the black, obviously what I was talking about, I don't want that to be super shiny. So let's just make that kind of like a, you know, a 0.31. Do whatever you want. Don't use these exact values. Just mess around with it till it looks good. So that's cool. We've got a nice effect there. It's a little bit more blurry, just a little more exciting. Kind of looks like a rubberized. Pretty cool look, I'd say. And I'm really not liking what I did with the color here. Maybe we just make it white again. Yeah, you could make it metallic. What would that look like? Oh, snap. That's freaking cool. Oh my gosh. Should I leave it metallic? Actually, okay. Super sidetrack here. This was not supposed to be part of the tutorial. I know it's already getting like crazy long. So, but this is what you guys are here for, right? You're here for the good stuff. Let's use that input one more time and adjust this metallic value. Okay, so let's see again. We want you usually either want 1 or 0 for your metallic value. So this is going to work. So I'm just going to, without even thinking about it, plug it in. Okay, so I think it's backwards. So the black was 0 and we actually want it to be the other way. That's right. So I'm going to go into converter, or sorry, where the heck is it? I want to invert it. I want to change the white to black and converter. Oh wait, no, it's color. We're doing colors. Derek, use your knowledge. Okay. Oh yeah, baby. Now we have, all right. This is too cool. This is too cool. I should be charging for this. Just kidding. It's free. I do have a Patreon, by the way. This file will be available there, though. And now maybe I'm a little more interested in my color. Maybe we do, Okay, so we got the color in there. So this end was the black. Let's make that like a gold, maybe. Rose gold, bringing back the favorite color from the old days. And it's time to start doing some animation. I'm tired of moving this box manually. So it's kind of like a coppery rose gold. Let's make this a white. And we're definitely gonna need to blast this with a little more light here. Let's go back into our layout. You've done very well, shading tab. I do appreciate you. Okay, so that's let's go here. Okay, got that. I'm gonna be cool with shader for now. I think that's good. So let's change this one back to a 3D viewport while I adjust my lighting a little bit. So I want the white to appear much brighter than it currently is. I'm gonna maybe bring this up so we're getting a little more heat from the top. Oh yeah. Ooh yeah. Ooh yeah. Maybe I want that all the way over there. Could add a second light. Maybe move it down, up. I don't know. This is stylistic. Thank you for all the kind comments I always get on my lighting and questions I get about it. This is how I do it. I just move stuff around until it kind of looks cool. Okay. Let's leave it at that. That's pretty freaking sweet. And let's go ahead and actually just give this a material. All right, Derek. Use the tabs. Shading. Okay. Let's make this a new material. Call it the wall. All in all, you're just another material in the slots. Oh yeah, got that, didn't you? Let's turn definitely don't want that, that's ugly. Turn the roughness all the way up, specular all the way down. It's a good way to get a really nice flat color, by the way, is specular down, roughness up. We can make this a pure white. Looking good. We might end up needing to use, that's still not like as bright of a white as I want. We could make some more adjustments in this material, but it's complex enough anyways. Which, by the way, I don't know, whenever I'm watching a tutorial with node setups, I always have to move through YouTube to try to find the one spot where they have it full frame, easy enough to see. We do things differently here on the Dirk channel. We give you it, exactly what you're looking for. Here it is. Enjoy it in all its glory. Let's get back to it. Donate to me on Patreon if you like my node setup. And subscribe to me on Instagram, or follow me on Instagram. I always forget to say like and subscribe. Oh, thumbs up. I don't think I've said thumbs up. Thumbs up this video. All right. Sorry I'm wasting your time. Give me the thumbs up. Let's do just a little bit of animation. I think this is looking pretty sweet. Yeah, so this background, we did that. That looks good. Maybe we should make it like a black. Nah. Ooh, that's okay. This is good. We can make it a dark gray. That way the white will pop a little more. Dude, this is looking way cooler than I expected. Okay. Control S. Save that bad boy. Let's keep it coming. Keep it coming. I'm going to do just a little bit of animation so that this thing is freaking cool. I hope you guys are having as much fun as I am. Let's get some animation going. I think what I want to do is have the box kind of fly backwards and open up. So how long do we want this thing to be? Let's have it be kind of like a logo intro animation. And since I'm an adult now and I'm working on higher quality stuff, I've been using 30 frames per second lately. Yeah, I know. Pretty fancy. Done with that 24 business. Let's do this at, let's just say 5 seconds at 30 frames per second. Okay, so that gives us 150 frames to work with. I think that's pretty good. So where do we want this to? We've been kind of looking at it. Are we going to mess ourselves up if we leave that? Nah, we're not really tied to that angle. So let's start this kind of forward. Oh yeah, and it's cool because it's like out of the light and then it comes into the light. Oh yeah. So let's start it right there. Maybe it would like fade in from black or something. This would be kind of like a cool like motion graphics logo template or something. Insert a single keyframe there. And then pretty quickly, I think, maybe over the course of just 1 second, I want that to fly back into position. Wait, where's back into position? 0. Insert single keyframe. Cool, let's save. So that starts off, it flies in, and maybe as it flies in, it like does a spin too. So maybe right here it's at, Oh, so that would be the Z rotation. Insert single keyframe. And then right here it would be like, so like that value plus 360 if we wanted to do a full rotation. Is that cool? Do we like that? Maybe that actually happens kind of a little more slowly. Let's drag that keyframe over here. And by the way, if you're not enjoying the progress speed at which I'm moving, I do apologize. It's going to get up just a little bit slower, but I want to use this tutorial to really show you guys the steps that it takes. It's not always easy. I will try to knock this off soon, though. I think we're getting pretty close. So I wanted that Z, let's hide the Y location. I want that Z to happen more gradually. So let's have it, maybe it starts spinning really fast. So let's, so right now it slows down, speeds up. I want it to start fast and then slow down. And then maybe, you know, throughout the animation, it does like a little more rotation. So let's just duplicate this, have it kind of start to move back again. And I'm not going to try to make this looping, so I'm not worried about getting it exactly on the numbers. Okay, so it doesn't need to come back that much. So we just want to kind of keep some movement in there. Something like that I think looks pretty sweet. And I saw this in somebody else's tutorial the other day. You can turn on, oh, it was actually on the Blender channel. I didn't realize, but you can turn on motion blur. Oh, we better turn on bloom too. If you know anything about being cool. Intensity. Let's make that intense, baby. Give it to me. Okay, that's too much. That looks cool though, right? Is that cool? Tell me, is that cool? All right, I think it's cool. I like that. Now, oh yeah, what was I doing? I was doing the motion blur. I think you got to turn it on, and then I think it's supposed to work like based on the camera. I don't know. Maybe it's just when I render it. Let's try a little Control S and let's try a render. Wait, maybe I picked a bad frame to render it on. So it should be moving pretty quick right there. Let's try. Is it going? I don't know much about EEVEE motion blur, but I know you can turn it on. Where's the shutter speed? Okay, I assume it's working. Maybe there's an adjustment in the camera here. Oh, while we're at it, definitely want some depth of field. Let's start it off blurry. Let's have it focused right in the center. So let's turn that on. Focus object, we'll have it be the empty. And then we'll turn the f-stop down so it gets kind of blurry. But when it gets back there, it should be pretty clear. Yeah, that looks good. I'm liking the way that looks. Maybe turn it up just a little bit so it's not so intense. And then so back here it's blurry. Oh yeah, that's cool. And dude, look at EEVEE, just freaking flying here. I'm watching my animation like live, besides a few small details like the quality will improve, but that's like a pretty accurate look. And honestly, let's just, for the sake of checking it, let's see what this looks like in cycles right now. I bet it's like almost exactly the same. Okay, yeah, so cycles, obviously the master, but EEVEE working amazing. Yeah, look at that, so quick. Okay, let's just do a little bit more animation here. Maybe once it gets back there, I want the top to start kind of coming off and then maybe slam back closed. So let's have the top, and this is one reason we worked with the empty earlier. If we just move this on the like local Z or global Z, it would go like up that way, and we don't want that. We want it to go out. And so since we're working with the empty, that's working very nicely. So let's say it stays attached right here, and then, so let's insert keyframe, and then it'll slam back close, I think at the end, somewhere right there. So insert a keyframe there, and then maybe kind of opens. So I guess if it's going to slam at the end, then this keyframe needs to be pretty far forward. Have that go up. Insert single keyframe. It's going up. Bam. I think that looks pretty good. And again, you probably heard me say, good animation is really going to take a long time to get looking right. But play with these curves as much as you want to get the look you're going for. But I think that's going to work pretty good. And then at this keyframe, maybe I also want this to pull away from it. So that would be this Z location, maybe comes down a little bit, something like that. And then we'll have it slam back together at the same time. So put that back to 0, insert single keyframe, and then maybe this is like up here, right around then. Looking very cool. You can put your logo on there. Oh, you know, maybe even while this is up here, maybe it like spins around. So when it's at the peak right there, we'll have it insert single keyframe, and then we'll have it spin, and then it'll slam back down. So maybe here it's 360, full rotation, which it doesn't need to be. I guess it could be like 90. It would actually, that could be an interesting thing. I would say that that is interesting. Let's do that. Let's minus 90 so that it goes back down in a different place, which that would actually be cool. So like, wait, do I have info on one of the other sides? So there's the upside down one. Yeah, that's kind of cool. So maybe we just make it do a 180 or a multiple of 180, or not a multiple. Let's do 360 plus 180. Insert, replace single keyframe. So did I mess that up? No, we're good. I just got the 1. So now, you know, that wouldn't be something you want to do, and it loops if you wanted it to loop. But now it slams back down, upside down. Pretty trippy, pretty cool. Okay, so I'm liking that, guys. I think we're pretty much done here. If you liked the tutorial, please feel free to give me a thumbs up, give me a subscribe. If you want this exact file and the thing I will do while we're talking here, then you may be interested in joining my Patreon, which I recently set up. It's really just there as a way for you guys to give me some money. I'm gonna call it how it is. Yeah, I put these tutorials out, pour my heart and soul into them for free because I have been using Blender a long time, and this is how I learned how to use Blender, so I want to be able to train people the same way that I learned it. And I figured what better way than to share some of my knowledge. So this isn't working out for me. So yeah, so if you're interested in giving me some of your money, there's a couple reward tiers, and they're really just, yeah, you just, you know, you give me like $2 or 15, or email me if you want to give me $1 million. I'd be happy to take it. Yeah, so all the levels have the same reward, which is just getting the files, the 3D files. You know, you don't have to give me anything, obviously. All right, this is dragging out too long. What am I doing here? Okay, I want to assign this. Oh yeah, there we go. Okay, so I wanted to make it glow from inside. Is it working? I guess maybe that's not really going to work because this is EEVEE and you can't actually see it. Okay, well that looks kind of cool. You know what we could do maybe? Here's a cool effect. And by the way, the tutorial's over, so please leave. Don't complain about the tutorial being long if you're still watching. Let's name that material. This is cool. So now when it opens, oh, we'll get a glow effect. And I'm not even going to worry about the fact that the inside, actually, so that we can see what we're doing. Maybe let's just, okay, so let's get rid of it there. Let's assign that to the original material. And then maybe right here, we'll do this, and we can give this the new material, the emit material. So yeah, if you're interested, I will put this file exactly as it appears when I finally stop blabbering on my Patreon. You're welcome to play around with it for as little as $2 a month. And yeah, like, subscribe. Hope you guys enjoyed this. I'm going to render this bad boy out. Hopefully it doesn't have those weird effects. We'll find out if it does. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Leave comments and stuff. Oh, I should have rotated it so you could see the bottom. Anyways, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Peace.